Good morning, champion. Today is not just another day, it's a divine appointment. You didn't wake up by accident, you woke up with purpose. You are alive on purpose, with purpose, for a purpose. And before your feet hit the floor, there are 6 things, 6 life-altering declarations you must tell yourself. Because if you don't command your mind will command you. If you don't set the thermostat of your life, you'll live reacting to someone else's weather. You were not created to be a passive participant in life. You were created to be a producer. Every morning when your eyes open, you're given the divine privilege and responsibility to create, not just to exist, not just to survive, but to build something meaningful, something powerful, something transformative. Too many people wake up and immediately start consuming, scrolling through social media, checking email, absorbing other people's thoughts, fears, and distractions. But when you start your day as a consumer, you relinquish your power. You begin your morning reacting instead of initiating. You become a follower in a world that desperately needs leaders. The mindset of a creator is fundamentally different. A creator understands that nothing in life improves unless someone decides to create a better version of it. The clothes you wear, the device you're reading this on, the home you live in, everything began in the mind of a creator. That power is not exclusive. It's not reserved for the elite. It's inside of you. When you wake up with the mentality that you are a creator, you start looking at problems as opportunities. You stop complaining and start constructing. You stop waiting and start initiating. Being a creator means you don't wait for permission. You don't wait for the market to be perfect. You don't wait for applause or validation. Creators move forward in faith, not because the way is easy, but because the mission is necessary. Every time you choose to create instead of consume, you reclaim authority over your life. You break free from the cycle of dependency. You stop asking, what do I need? And start asking, what can I give? And giving, whether it's your ideas, your voice, your service, or your value, is the fastest way to build wealth, influence, and legacy. A consumer mindset is often driven by scarcity. It sees the world as limited. There's never enough time, never enough resources, never enough opportunity. But a creator sees abundance. A creator believes, if I don't see the door, I'll build one. And that's not arrogance, that's alignment. Alignment with your divine nature, which is to take raw material and turn it into something meaningful. Whether that's a business, a relationship, a piece of art, or an impact in your community, your creative power is the engine of your destiny. It doesn't matter where you start. What matters is how you see yourself in the morning. Most people start their day with a to-do list. But if you really want to change your life, start with a to-be list. Who do I need to be to create what I desire? What do I need to embody to manifest what I've been praying for? When you see yourself as a creator, you take responsibility for your energy. You don't wait to feel inspired. You create the inspiration by showing up, by doing the work, by becoming the person who operates with purpose and intensity, regardless of circumstance. You see, consumers are driven by entertainment. Creators are driven by purpose. Consumers chase dopamine hits, new trends, new likes, new distractions. Creators chase alignment. They know that fulfillment doesn't come from what you take in, it comes from what you give out. The satisfaction of knowing you built something that didn't exist before you showed up, that your presence created progress, that your ideas, your sweat, your commitment move the world forward, even if only by an inch. That is the quiet power of a creator. There is a war for your attention every single morning. Notifications, alerts, messages, they're all bait. They pull you into a reactionary rhythm where your thoughts are hijacked before you've even had time to think. But when you rise as a creator, you reclaim the first hour of your day. You fill it with silence, reflection, intention. You write, you pray, you build, you speak. Whatever activates your genius, that first hour becomes your launch pad, not your leash. It sets the tone for a day of creation instead of consumption. Creators don't wait for motivation, they manufacture momentum. They understand that clarity doesn't come before action, it comes from action. They know that imperfect output beats perfect procrastination. Every post, every plan, every product they produce may not be flawless, but it's forward. And forward is the only direction that matters for a creator. While consumers are waiting for the perfect moment, creators are creating the moment. They're doing, testing, refining, and repeating. When you operate as a creator, you step into a higher level of accountability. You stop blaming your circumstances. You stop pointing fingers at the economy, your upbringing, your boss, or your past. You begin to see that you are not a product of your environment. You are the producer of your environment. And when you believe that, truly believe it, you begin to show up differently. You stop asking for things to get easier, and you start asking yourself to get stronger. You stop consuming reasons to quit, and you start creating reasons to keep going. This shift is not just mental, it's spiritual. It awakens something ancient and powerful in you, the ability to shape your world with words, with ideas, with vision and effort. You begin to realize that every day is not a task list, it's a canvas, and you are the artist. You are not the audience of your life, you are the author. You are not a slave to trends, you are a steward of truth. And as a creator, you don't just change your circumstance, you become the person who changes everything. Fear is a natural emotion, but it was never meant to be your leader. When you wake up in the morning, your first battle is not against time or money or people, it's against fear. Fear is sneaky. It whispers questions like, what if you fail? What if you're not enough? What if they don't like you? And if you listen too long, those whispers turn into commands. They control your choices. They dictate your pace. They become the reason you delay your dreams. But fear is not a compass. It's a cage. You were never meant to be imprisoned by your own imagination. You were meant to be propelled by vision and belief. Faith, on the other hand, is the exact opposite. Faith speaks a different language. Faith says, what if it works? What if this is your moment? What if you're more capable than you think? Faith doesn't need proof to act. It acts and creates the proof. That's the difference between living by sight and living by vision. Sight tells you what is. Faith tells you what could be. And what could be is always more powerful than what currently is, because faith activates movement, and movement brings transformation. Fear is rooted in the past. It gathers evidence from everything that's gone wrong and uses it to predict your future. It's a mental loop that keeps you grounded in what's already happened, not what's possible. But faith pulls from the future. It sees your potential, your purpose, your calling. It borrows strength from the vision of what's ahead. That's why faith often feels uncomfortable, because it invites you to step into something you haven't seen yet. But the most powerful shifts in life always begin before there's evidence. There is no breakthrough without risk. Every great advancement in your life will require you to walk through fear by faith. That doesn't mean you won't feel afraid. It means you won't be led by it. You'll feel the fear and do it anyway. You'll hear the doubt but move forward anyway. Because courage isn't the absence of fear, it's action in spite of fear. Every day you choose faith over fear, you take ground. You reclaim territory, you expand your influence, you grow your capacity. People often wait for fear to disappear before they move. They wait until they're confident, until everything's clear, until there are no risks left. But faith doesn't work like that. Faith requires you to walk while it's still foggy, to speak when your voice is trembling, to build when the blueprint hasn't fully unfolded. That's the cost of stepping into something bigger than yourself. If you wait until it's easy, you'll always be late. Faith is for those who move first and figure it out on the way. Fear is an internal assassin. It doesn't just stop you from acting, it stops you from becoming. It convinces you that playing small is safe, that being invisible is wise, and that mediocrity is acceptable. It'll tell you to shrink, to stay quiet, to aim lower. But every time you shrink to satisfy your fear, you rob the world of your full potential. You were not designed to survive. You were designed to dominate. And domination doesn't begin in the marketplace or the stage. It begins in your mind. It begins the moment you stop feeding fear and start feeding faith. Faith requires a decision. You have to decide daily that you are not available for fear, that you will not allow fear to drive the car. It can ride in the back seat, but it will never touch the wheel. You will not surrender your future to a false prophet called fear. You'll walk boldly into rooms where you feel unqualified. You'll say yes to assignments that scare you. You'll step onto stages, into meetings, into opportunities that feel bigger than you because your faith is bigger than your fear. The challenge is that fear often disguises itself as logic. It wears the mask of reason. Be realistic. Play it safe. Don't risk too much. And it sounds wise, doesn't it? But deep down, you know it's not wisdom. It's worry. It's not protection. It's paralysis. True wisdom understands risk but refuses to be ruled by it. Faith acknowledges the risk and still says move. Faith sees the odds and still says act. Because if you only do what's safe, you'll never discover what's sacred. Faith doesn't always change the outcome, but it always changes you. It builds spiritual muscle. It makes you stronger, bolder, wiser. It turns setbacks into strategies and failure into fuel. With every faith-based decision you make, you grow your capacity to trust, to lead, to influence. And while fear shrinks your world, faith expands it. Fear will tell you to settle. Faith will teach you to soar. One builds prisons, the other builds paths. When you wake up and choose faith over fear, you give your future a fighting chance. You stop living from reaction and start living from revelation. Fear wants you to survive. Faith wants you to succeed. Every time you lean into faith, even in the face of uncertainty, you are declaring that your destiny is greater than your doubt, that your purpose is stronger than your pain, and that your vision is more valuable than your comfort. Ownership is the foundation of transformation. Until you take full responsibility for your results, you will always give your power away. Most people spend their lives pointing fingers, blaming the economy, their upbringing, their boss, or their environment. But the moment you shift from blame to ownership, everything changes. You begin to realize that your results are not random, they're not accidents. They are direct reflections of your decisions, your habits, your mindset, and your level of commitment. Nothing changes until you change. And the most powerful declaration you can make every morning is this: I own it all. When you take ownership, you stop negotiating with excuses. Excuses are easy. Excuses feel good in a moment. They comfort you when results are lacking. But excuses are expensive. They cost you progress. They cost you momentum. They cost you identity. Ownership is uncomfortable at first because it forces you to look in the mirror and confront your role in every outcome. It demands honesty, not blame. It calls you to stop defending your limitations and start developing your discipline. And while it's not easy, it is the only path to true power. People who operate in ownership don't wait for life to give them permission. They don't need perfect conditions to take action. They don't complain about what they can't control. They focus entirely on what they can control. They control their work ethic, they control their attitude, they control how they show up, how they respond, how they lead. When you live in ownership, you shift from victim to victor. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what can I do about it? Ownership doesn't mean you won't face setbacks. It means you won't let setbacks define you. It means you don't surrender your story to circumstance. You learn, you adjust, you pivot, but you never relinquish your power. You understand that progress is your responsibility. No one's coming to save you. No one owes you anything. The day you truly embrace ownership is the day you take control of your growth, your income, your relationships, and your destiny. When you lack ownership, you live in delay. You keep waiting for the right time, the right opportunity, the right support. But waiting is just fear in disguise. Ownership says, even if I don't have everything, I'll use what I do have. It's the mindset of multiplication. You take one talent and turn it into 5. You turn pain into purpose. You turn loss into leadership. Ownership doesn't require more resources. It requires more responsibility. And the moment you accept that, you activate your potential. You can always tell who lives in ownership because they move differently. They don't gossip. They don't whine. They don't dwell in problems, they dwell in solutions. Their language is different. They say things like, I'll figure it out. Let's make it happen. What's the next move? They speak like leaders because they think like leaders. Ownership isn't just an attitude, it's an identity. It shapes how you carry yourself, how you approach conflict, how you face challenge. You stop reacting emotionally and start responding strategically. The reason most people avoid ownership is because it forces them to admit that where they are is not where they want to be and that they are responsible for the gap. But responsibility is not a burden, it's a blessing. Because the same power that forces you to accept where you are is the power that equips you to change it. When you own your failures, you gain the authority to rewrite the outcome. When you own your time, you become the master of your days. When you own your habits, you become the architect of your future. Which I always thought, there is no leadership without ownership. You can't lead a team, a business, a family, or a movement if you haven't learned to lead yourself. That's where it begins. You manage your time, your energy, your thoughts, your emotions. You don't let life happen to you, you happen to life. You wake up with intention, not just ambition. You move with purpose, not just pressure. Because when you own your results, your actions align with your values, and your values align with your vision. It's easy to talk about goals, it's easy to set intentions, but goals without ownership are just wishes. You can't hope your way to transformation. You have to build it. You have to commit when it's inconvenient. You have to stay consistent when no one is clapping. Ownership is what keeps you moving when motivation fades. It's what keeps you grounded when success comes and what keeps you going when failure visits. It's the daily decision to be accountable to your own greatness. The difference between people who talk about potential and people who live it is ownership. Ownership eliminates entitlement, it removes distractions, it destroys procrastination, because once you accept that you are the source of your outcomes, you stop wasting time and start using time. You stop waiting for someone to change your life and start becoming the person who changes it. You become the driver, not the passenger. The leader, not the observer. The cause, not the effect. Prosperity is more than just a full bank account, it's a full life. The moment you limit prosperity to money, you shrink its meaning. True prosperity touches every dimension of who you are, your mindset, your relationships, your health, your purpose, your peace, and yes, your finances. You weren't born to chase money, you were born to become a magnet for abundance. That starts by understanding that prosperity is your birthright, not a reward for perfection, but a result of alignment. When your thoughts, actions, and intentions line up with the truth of who you are, prosperity begins to flow into every area of your life. Most people don't lack resources, they lack awareness. They wake up speaking lack, thinking lack, expecting lack, and then they wonder why their reality mirrors their confession. Prosperity begins in language. Every morning, the words you speak either invite abundance or repel it. When you speak negativity, you construct mental prisons. When you speak possibility, you open mental doors. Your vocabulary is a seed, and the harvest is your lifestyle. That's why speaking prosperity over your day is not wishful thinking, it's spiritual warfare. It's you refusing to let fear dictate the terms of your future. You can have money and still be poor in mindset. You can drive a luxury car and still feel empty. That's because prosperity is not just accumulation, it's alignment. It's when your internal world becomes so whole that your external world begins to reflect it. Prosperity doesn't mean you never struggle, it means you never settle. It means you approach every challenge with the belief that provision is attached to your purpose, that everything you need is either already inside of you or already on its way. That's not arrogance, it's agreement with truth. There is no prosperity without peace. A tormented mind will sabotage every blessing. You could receive the opportunity of a lifetime, but if your mind is filled with fear, insecurity, and comparison, you'll reject it before it even manifests. That's why guarding your inner world is non-negotiable. Peace is not passive, it's a weapon. It protects your clarity, your creativity, and your confidence. And the more you protect your peace, the more you attract what's meant for you, because prosperity flows through clarity, not chaos. Another layer of true prosperity is relational wealth. The quality of your life is heavily influenced by the quality of your connections. Some people are financially rich, but relationally bankrupt. They've built empires, but lost their families. That's not prosperity. It's performance. Prosperity looks like wholeness. It means you don't sacrifice love for labor. It means you learn how to pour into others without depleting yourself. It means your presence brings peace into every room, not pressure, because you've built a life from overflow, not obligation. Health is another cornerstone of prosperity. What good is building your dream if you can't enjoy it because your body's breaking down? Prosperity demands stewardship. Your energy, your sleep, your nutrition. These aren't side notes. They are success strategies. Every act of self-care is an investment in your purpose. When you feel better, you think clearer. When you move better, you lead stronger. Prosperity doesn't just show up in your bank account. It shows up in your bones, your breath, and your being. Prosperity also includes progress. You were created to grow, to stretch, to rise. Stagnation is a form of poverty. It slowly robs you of joy, confidence, and vision. Prosperity invites you to become better, not just do more. It says, don't just hustle, heal. Don't just grind, grow. Every day you choose growth over comfort, you expand your capacity to handle more, to manage more, to multiply more. And multiplication is a hallmark of prosperity, not just in finances, but in impact, in influence, and in legacy. Generosity is both a product and a proof of prosperity. The more you grow, the more you give, and the more you give, the more you grow. That's not a cliche, it's a principle. Prosperous people don't hold tightly to what they have because they live with the confidence that more is always coming. They don't operate from fear of loss, they operate from faith in overflow. Giving isn't just about money, it's about time, energy, wisdom, and presence. The more you give, the more room you make for what's next. Aspiration also means understanding your assignment. You weren't just placed on earth to survive, you were sent to solve. Your gifts are not accidents. Your talents are not hobbies. They are tools of transformation. Prosperity comes when you align your work with your why, when your contribution matches your calling. That's when fulfillment replaces frustration. When you stop working for a paycheck and start working from a purpose. That's when your life becomes bigger than your bills, and your days become driven by destiny, not just duty. To walk in prosperity, you must stop disqualifying yourself. Stop rehearsing your past failures as evidence of future limits. Prosperity doesn't require a perfect past. It requires a renewed mind. Every morning you have a choice. Speak life or speak limits. Prosperity begins when you choose to believe that you are not just eligible for abundance, you are engineered for it. Your story, your scars, your strength, it's all part of the equation, because the most prosperous people aren't those who had it easy. They're the ones who learned how to rise, rebuild, and receive. Discipline is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. It's not about motivation, because motivation is fleeting. It's here one moment and gone the next. Discipline is what shows up when your feelings don't. It's the force that carries your vision when your emotions get tired. Every successful person you admire is not driven by hype. They are grounded in discipline. It's not the big flashy moves that build greatness. It's the small, quiet, consistent decisions made daily. Discipline doesn't scream, it whispers, do it anyway. When the alarm goes off and your body wants to rest, discipline tells you to rise. When distractions flood in, discipline keeps your focus locked on what matters. Most people are addicted to comfort. They only act when it's easy, but discipline thrives in discomfort. Discipline is forged in the fire of resistance. It's built in the moments when everything in you wants to quit, but you push through anyway. Growth is not born in ease, it's born in struggle. Discipline requires you to become friends with inconvenience, to do the hard thing first, to trade what you want now for what you want most. because the price of your future is paid for with present pain. And discipline is the currency that gets you there. You can't claim you want success and keep making emotional decisions. Discipline is the ability to choose principles over feelings, vision over impulse, and the long game over short-term pleasure. Emotional decisions are unpredictable. They change based on mood, energy, or circumstance. But disciplined decisions are rooted in conviction. They're made before the situation ever arrives. You decide in advance how you'll respond to pressure, how you'll navigate obstacles, how you'll stay committed when results are slow. That's why disciplined people look unshakable, because they're not controlled by the moment. Discipline is not punishment, it's alignment. It brings every part of your life into agreement with your highest self. It teaches your body to obey your spirit. It brings your schedule into sync with your goals. It brings your mind under submission to your mission. And when you walk in alignment, there's a power that flows through your actions. You're not guessing, you're not drifting, you're locked in. You move with intentionality. You become a person of precision. Discipline eliminates confusion because it forces clarity. You don't chase 10 things, you master one thing until it multiplies. In a world full of distractions, discipline becomes a superpower. Everything around you is designed to steal your focus. Notifications, noise, negativity. Discipline is what builds a wall around your focus. It tells your phone when to shut off. It tells your calendar what gets a yes and what gets a no. It protects your energy from the urgency of others. Focused discipline is how empires are built, 1 hour, one habit, one priority at a time. When you master your minutes, you master your months, and eventually your life reflects that mastery. Discipline is the root of self-respect. When you keep the promises you make to yourself, your confidence grows. You begin to trust your own word. You stop needing validation from others because you become your own evidence. Every disciplined action is a deposit in your identity. It says, I am the kind of person who follows through. I am the kind of person who does. And when life tests you, and it will, you don't crumble because you've trained yourself to be consistent regardless of conditions. Confidence isn't found in a mirror. It's found in the mirror of your habits. People think discipline is rigid, but it actually gives you more freedom. Undisciplined people are always playing catch up. They're reactive. They're stuck in chaos. But disciplined people have more time, more peace, and more control. They plan their work and work their plan. They say no without guilt. They rest without regret. Because discipline isn't just about grinding. It's about governing your life with wisdom. It gives you margin. It gives you rhythm. It gives you the power to design a life that doesn't burn you out, but builds you up. Discipline multiplies results. What takes others 10 years can take you 5, not because you're smarter, but because you're steady. You show up whether or not you feel like it. You train when others procrastinate. You prepare while others party. That consistency compounds. It creates a gap between you and the average, and that gap gets wider with time. Eventually, your disciplined lifestyle turns into exponential outcomes. People will call it luck or talent, but it's not. It's the quiet power of repetition. The world celebrates the moment, but discipline celebrates the process. You cannot outsource discipline. No one can do it for you. Coaches can guide you, mentors can inspire you, friends can encourage you, but you must do the work. Discipline is deeply personal. It's your private victory that leads to public elevation. It's what you do when no one's watching. It's what you choose when no one is clapping. If you wait to feel ready, you'll always be waiting. But if you decide to be disciplined, you'll always be building. The difference between average and excellent is an opportunity. It's obedience to what needs to be done day after day without excuse. Discipline is not an event, it's a lifestyle. It's not just something you do for 30 days, it's how you show up every day, it's how you think, how you act, how you recover. It becomes the framework of your identity. Eventually, discipline stops being hard, it becomes who you are. You don't have to force it because it flows from your new standard. And when discipline becomes natural, success becomes inevitable. The work is no longer a burden. It's a blessing because you understand that your future is not found in your feelings. It's found in your follow-through. Based on feelings. The faith is not a feeling. It's a decision to trust what you cannot yet see more than what you can currently touch. Faith is the fuel of vision. It's what keeps you moving when there's no visible evidence that things are working. It's not just believing for the future. It's living today like the future is already written in your favor. Faith isn't just optimism. It's conviction. Say, is the internal knowing that your assignment is real, your purpose is valid, and your breakthrough is on the way, even when your current circumstances look like the opposite. Faith walks into rooms uninvited and says, I belong here not because the door is wide open, but because destiny already gave it clearance. Faith speaks before the facts agree. It's the voice that declares abundance while standing in the middle of lack. It's the mindset that acts wealthy before the account reflects it. It's the belief that healing is possible even when the diagnosis says otherwise. Faith doesn't ignore reality, it overrides it. Faith doesn't cancel out the facts. It elevates your response to them because while facts describe what is, faith declares what can be. And the people who shift atmospheres, build legacies, and rewrite generational narratives are not those who wait for permission. They are those who move in faith. Faith demands movement. It's not passive hope. It's active obedience. You cannot say you have faith and stay stagnant. If you believe something is coming, you prepare for it, you build for it, you stretch for it, you structure your life to receive what you haven't even seen yet. Faith without works is fantasy. It's not just what you say you believe, it's what you're willing to do about it. Faith shows up in your calendar. It shows up in your discipline. It shows up in how you speak to yourself when no one else is around. Because what you truly believe will always manifest in how you behave. Faith is a muscle, and muscles grow through resistance. Every test you go through isn't trying to break you, it's trying to build your belief. The reason many people fold under pressure is because their faith was never trained in private. They waited until the storm to start preparing, but faith must be developed before the fight. That means choosing to believe when you have every reason to doubt. It means praising when you feel like panicking. It means showing up when quitting looks more reasonable. Resistance is not your enemy, it's your opportunity to grow roots that can hold your future. Faith redefines failure. It doesn't see failure as an identity, it sees it as information. When you walk by faith, every setback becomes a setup, every delay becomes development, and every rejection becomes redirection. Faith doesn't keep you from falling, it gives you the resilience to rise. It teaches you that your worth is not in the outcome, it's in your obedience. You stop being attached to outcomes and start being committed to the process. Because faith doesn't need everything to make sense, it just needs you to stay consistent. Progress doesn't always look like forward motion. Sometimes it looks like endurance. Faith is contagious. The way you believe influences how others believe. When you walk boldly in faith, you create an atmosphere that gives other people permission to believe bigger. That's why your voice matters, your journey matters, your example matters. Faith isn't always loud. It's often found in quiet consistency, in daily trust, in radical gratitude. But that quiet confidence speaks volumes. People may not always say it, but they're watching you. And every time you choose faith over fear, you give someone else the courage to do the same. Faith, that's a book that's Faith silences fear. Fear will always have a voice, but it doesn't have to have authority. Faith doesn't mean you never feel afraid. It means you refuse to be led by fear. Fear focuses on what might go wrong. Faith focuses on what could go right. Faith calls you to step forward. You train your mind to trust not by eliminating doubt, but by deciding that doubt doesn't get the final word. Your spirit knows what your circumstances forget. Faith always sees further than fear. And if you keep choosing faith, you eventually outrun the echo of fear. Faith attracts favor. Favor doesn't find you when you're sitting still. It finds you in motion. As you walk, things align. As you obey, doors open. As you stretch, provision meets you. Faith is not magic, it's magnetic. It pulls into your life what preparation has made room for. You stop chasing opportunities and start creating them. You become a magnet for miracles because you've decided to believe before you see. When you move in faith, favor follows you, not because you're lucky, but because you're aligned. Because heaven always supports what's rooted in trust and executed with courage. Faith requires focus. You cannot live in faith and be consumed with distractions. Faith clears the clutter. It helps you ignore the noise of doubt, delay, and discouragement. It reminds you why you started. It keeps your eyes on the vision and your heart tuned to truth. People who live by faith are not superhuman, they're just intentional. They filter what they allow into their spirit. They protect their perspective. They meditate on possibility because they understand that focus is how faith finds its footing. You can't believe big and entertain every small thought that knocks on your mind. Faith leads to fulfillment. It's not just about getting things, it's about becoming someone. Faith doesn't just bring blessings, it builds character. It forges identity. It teaches you how to depend on a source greater than yourself and how to trust that what's in front of you is not all there is. Faith is the pathway to peace, to purpose, and to power. It teaches you that you're not just here to exist, you're here to expand. And every time you stretch your faith, you make room for more capacity, more wisdom, more breakthrough, more influence, more life.